Ashley Elkins was not just another name on a police report. She was a living, breathing soul whose life revolved around love, family, and responsibility. A young woman with her whole future ahead of her, Ashley was the proud mother of 2 children, and her greatest joy in life came from raising them. Every choice she made, every ounce of energy she poured into her days, was centered on making sure her kids grew up in a home filled with love and hope. Those who knew her say she had a spirit that couldn't be ignored. Her smile was contagious, her laugh unforgettable. She was the kind of person who could turn a bad day around just by walking into the room. Friends often describe Ashley as the glue that held people together, a listener, a comforter, and someone who cared deeply about the people in her life. But behind her joy, Ashley carried a quiet strength. Life as a single mother was never easy. There were nights when she worked late, mornings when she barely had time for herself, and countless days when she had to fight through exhaustion just to keep things moving. Yet, she never once complained. To her, these struggles were worth it because they meant her children were cared for, safe, and loved. Ashley dreamed of more than just survival, she dreamed of building something lasting for her kids. She wanted to give them the opportunities she never had. Education, stability, safety, these were things she envisioned for their future. She was determined to be the example her children could look up to, the kind of mother who not only loved them but inspired them. Beyond motherhood, Ashley was a daughter, a friend, and a woman with ambitions of her own. She wasn't defined only by her struggles, she had passions, she had goals, and she had a personality that drew people in. Her family recalls that she was fun-loving, quick-witted, and always ready to laugh, even in the face of adversity. Her friends say she could brighten any room, but more importantly, she made people feel seen and heard. Still, life wasn't always kind to Ashley. She found herself entangled in a relationship that brought more pain than peace. Her ex-boyfriend, DeAndre Booker, had once been someone she trusted, but over time, their relationship grew toxic. Rumors of infidelity, heated arguments, and a constant cycle of betrayal began to weigh heavily on her. And while she tried to keep her personal battles hidden, those close to her could see the strain. Ashley wanted stability. She wanted peace. But she also wanted love, a love that was real, genuine, and respectful. Unfortunately, what she received instead was heartbreak and turmoil. And while she pushed forward, trying to focus on her children and her future, the storm brewing in her personal life would eventually consume her in ways no one could have imagined. Her story is more than a headline, it's a reminder of how fragile life can be, and how easily someone so full of love and promise can be taken away. Before tragedy struck, Ashley was a woman striving for a better tomorrow. She was a mother fighting for her children. She was a friend who made life brighter for those around her. She was a daughter her family cherished deeply. Ashley Elkins was a fighter, a provider, a nurturer, and a dreamer. She deserved a long life filled with the joys she gave to others. But instead, her story would take a devastating turn, one that no family should ever have to endure. When Ashley Elkins first crossed paths with DeAndre Booker, it wasn't all conflict and tragedy. Like so many relationships, it began with charm, attraction, and the hope of building something meaningful. For Ashley, who carried the weight of responsibility as a mother of 2, the idea of companionship and stability must have felt like a chance to share her burdens with someone she could trust. DeAndre seemed to offer that at first, attention, affection, and the kind of reassurance that convinces a person to open their heart. But over time, the cracks began to show. What looked like love and support slowly revealed itself as manipulation, betrayal, and instability. Their relationship became a cycle, brief moments of happiness, followed by arguments, tension, and heartbreak. For Ashley, who was trying to build a better life for her children, the constant turmoil was draining. One of the biggest wounds in their relationship was infidelity. DeAndre was unfaithful, and his actions left Ashley humiliated and brokenhearted. Friends noticed the toll it took on her, she questioned herself, she doubted her worth, and she struggled to understand why someone she gave her trust to could betray her so easily. Despite the pain, she often tried to hold on, hoping that things would improve. Like so many victims in toxic relationships, Ashley likely believed that love, effort, and forgiveness could somehow fix what was broken. But the truth was far darker. The relationship wasn't just unhealthy, it was toxic and dangerous. Arguments grew louder, the tension grew heavier, and Ashley found herself stuck in a cycle she couldn't easily escape. People close to her noticed the red flags, but toxic relationships often blur the lines between love and abuse, leaving victims feeling trapped and unsure of where to turn. Ashley's children remained her priority, but the chaos surrounding her relationship with DeAndre affected her deeply. She wanted to shield them from the drama, to protect them from the arguments and the betrayals, but as time went on, it became clear that the instability was spiraling out of control. What made matters worse was DeAndre's behavior. He was not only unfaithful, but he also displayed a cold disregard for Ashley's feelings. His cheating and his actions weren't just mistakes, they were deliberate choices that cut Ashley to her core. And yet, despite the heartbreak, Ashley tried to move forward with her life, trying to balance motherhood with the storm of emotions caused by his betrayals. To outsiders, the relationship looked like a constant push and pull. Ashley wanted peace, while DeAndre brought chaos. She sought love, while he offered lies. And in that toxic cycle, Ashley became more and more vulnerable, caught between her hope for a better relationship and the devastating reality of the man she was involved with. By the time things reached their breaking point, Ashley was not only emotionally exhausted, she was also in danger. What began as a relationship of love had turned into one filled with tension, betrayal, and ultimately, violence. This was not just a romance gone wrong, it was the foundation of a tragedy that would eventually claim her life. The night that would forever change everything for Ashley Elkins and her family began like so many others, ordinary, almost forgettable. But what unfolded in those dark hours was nothing short of chilling. On that night, Ashley found herself once again face to face with DeAndre Booker, the man who had broken her heart countless times before. Their relationship had been over, at least in Ashley's mind, but unfinished emotions, betrayal, and lingering anger brought them back together in a storm of tension. The air between them was heavy, thick with resentment and unspoken rage. Arguments were nothing new for Ashley and DeAndre. But this time, things escalated beyond repair. Witnesses later described hearing raised voices, the sound of anger boiling over into something far more dangerous. Ashley was a woman who had endured heartbreak and humiliation, but on that night, she stood against a man who was no longer willing to just argue, he was ready to destroy. The confrontation grew violent. What started as harsh words turned into physical aggression. DeAndre, driven by anger and betrayal, lashed out. In those terrifying moments, Ashley's life hung in the balance. She was not just a woman fighting for herself, she was a mother, a daughter, a friend whose loved ones had no idea she was in mortal danger. Some reports detail how the attack was brutal, fueled not by love, but by control and rage. For Ashley, the realization must have been terrifying, this wasn't just another fight. This was different. This was the moment where her toxic relationship turned deadly. And in the darkness of that night, Ashley Elkins' life was stolen from her. DeAndre Booker crossed a line from which there was no return. The act itself was violent, senseless, and irreversible. A young woman, full of life and dreams, was struck down not by a stranger, but by someone she once trusted, someone she once loved. But the horror didn't end there. Instead of remorse, instead of calling for help, instead of showing even the slightest ounce of humanity, DeAndre's actions took an even darker turn. He treated Ashley not as a human being, not as the mother of his children, but as a burden to be discarded. In a move that shocked the community and horrified investigators, he dumped her body in the trash, as though her life had no value, as though she could simply be thrown away. It was an act not only of murder but of pure dehumanization. That night, Ashley's story ended in the most brutal of ways. And while she took her final breaths alone, her children, her family, and her community would wake up to a nightmare that words can barely capture. The night of Ashley's murder was not just another tragic crime, it was a moment where rage, betrayal, and cruelty converged into an unspeakable act of violence. It was the night when the mother of two, a woman who had fought so hard to live and love, was silenced forever. What makes the murder of Ashley Elkins even more horrifying is not just how her life was taken, but what happened immediately afterward. For many killers, there is at least a moment of hesitation, a flicker of regret, or a sign of panic. But in DeAndre Booker's case, investigators say there was none of that. Instead, his actions revealed something far colder, something that stripped Ashley of her dignity even in death. Rather than treating her as the mother of two children, the woman he once claimed to love, DeAndre reduced Ashley to something less than human. He chose to dispose of her body like garbage. With a disturbing lack of remorse, he placed her remains in a trash bin, discarding her as though her life had meant nothing at all. This act of disposal wasn't just about hiding evidence, it was a statement of cruelty. By throwing her away, DeAndre attempted to erase her existence, to silence her voice permanently, and to treat her death as though it carried no weight. For Ashley's loved ones, this was one of the most painful aspects of the tragedy. It wasn't only that she was murdered, it was that her body, the very vessel of her being, was tossed aside with the same indifference as one would show to discarded waste. Imagine the reality of that discovery. A young mother, whose children would soon be crying out for her return, was lying in a dumpster, left to be carried away with the day's refuse. The image is gut-wrenching, a level of dehumanization that shakes even the most seasoned investigators. When police eventually uncovered the truth, the detail of Ashley's body being found in the trash sent shockwaves through the community. People were not only outraged, they were haunted. This wasn't just murder, it was humiliation, a final insult to a woman who deserved dignity, respect, and love. To discard Ashley this way was to deny her the humanity she had shown others all her life. It was to erase the fact that she was a mother, a daughter, a friend. It was to treat her as though her presence in the world was disposable, when in truth, she had been irreplaceable to so many. For her family, the thought of Ashley being left in a garbage bin was almost unbearable. The woman they loved so deeply, the mother who had given her all for her children, was left in a place that symbolized worthlessness. But Ashley was anything but worthless. She was priceless to those who loved her, and it is in that cruel contrast that the horror of DeAndre's actions truly comes into focus. This act marked the lowest point of the crime. Not just the end of Ashley's life, but the deliberate erasure of her dignity. The way DeAndre Booker disposed of Ashley's body remains one of the most disturbing parts of this tragedy, a moment that even now continues to haunt those who followed the case. When Ashley Elkins suddenly disappeared, her loved ones knew something was terribly wrong. She was not the kind of mother who would walk away from her children. She wasn't the type of daughter to vanish without a word. For her family, the silence was deafening, and the worry quickly turned into fear. Police were called, and what began as a missing persons case soon escalated into something far darker. Investigators retraced Ashley's last steps, interviewing family members, friends, and anyone who might have seen her in those final hours. Very quickly, one name kept resurfacing: DeAndre Booker. He was her ex-boyfriend, the man with whom she shared a turbulent and toxic history. And for detectives, he became the immediate focus. But suspicion alone wasn't enough, they needed evidence. They began piecing together Ashley's final moments. Witnesses spoke of arguments. Neighbors recalled hearing loud voices and disturbances on the night she vanished. Slowly, a picture began to form of what might have happened behind closed doors. The breakthrough came when investigators began searching the area and following DeAndre's movements. Surveillance cameras, forensic evidence, and witness testimonies painted a chilling timeline. What they uncovered confirmed the worst fears: Ashley had been killed, and her body had been disposed of in a trash bin. For the officers who found her remains, it was a haunting discovery. They were trained for difficult scenes, but nothing could take away the image of a young mother, a human being, discarded so carelessly. The brutality of the act hardened their resolve. This was not just another case. This was a crime that demanded swift justice. With mounting evidence, detectives closed in on DeAndre Booker. The walls around him were collapsing. He could no longer hide behind lies or excuses. Soon after, he was taken into custody, and the reality of his crime began to fully come to light. The arrest sent ripples through the community. For many, the shock wasn't only about the murder, it was about the callousness of the disposal, the betrayal of someone he once claimed to love, and the children left behind without their mother. When news of his arrest spread, there was relief that a dangerous man was off the streets, but there was also sorrow that Ashley's life had ended in such a cruel way, and that her children would now grow up knowing the truth about what happened to their mother. The investigation into Ashley's death showed the relentless work of law enforcement and the determination to uncover the truth, no matter how painful. But for her family, DeAndre's arrest was not a victory, it was only the first step in a long journey toward justice. The murder of Ashley Elkins did not end with her final breath, nor with DeAndre Booker's arrest. Its aftermath rippled outward, devastating everyone connected to her, and leaving wounds that will never fully heal. For Ashley's two young children, life was forever shattered. They lost not just their mother, but the anchor of their world, the one person who nurtured them, guided them, and gave them unconditional love. At ages far too young, they were forced to face a reality no child should ever endure, growing up without their mother, and knowing she was taken from them in such a brutal way. For them, bedtime stories, warm hugs, and the reassuring sound of her voice were stolen in an instant. Ashley's family, too, was left broken. Her parents, siblings, and loved ones not only had to grieve her death, but they also carried the unbearable pain of knowing how she died, betrayed and discarded by someone she once trusted. They struggled to comprehend the cruelty of it all. For them, every court hearing, every news headline, every reminder of DeAndre Booker's name reopened the wound. In the wider community, outrage grew. People were horrified not only by the violence of the act, but also by the cold disposal of Ashley's body. The details of the case struck a nerve. How could someone treat another human being, a mother of two, as though she were trash? Vigils were held, tributes poured in, and Ashley's name became a rallying cry against domestic violence and the dangers of toxic relationships. Her story became a reminder that behind closed doors, many women suffer in silence, and sometimes, those relationships end in unimaginable tragedy. As the legal system prepared its case against DeAndre Booker, the community demanded accountability. Prosecutors painted him as a man driven by selfishness, betrayal, and rage, a man who not only killed Ashley but also stripped her of dignity in death. The evidence was overwhelming: the history of a toxic relationship, the witnesses who heard arguments, the discovery of her body in the trash. Step by step, the justice system sought to make him answer for the horror he inflicted. But even as the trial unfolded, one truth remained: no sentence, no conviction, and no punishment could ever bring Ashley back. Justice could hold DeAndre accountable, but it could never fill the emptiness left in her children's hearts, or erase the nightmares her family endured. Ashley's story remains a painful reminder of the human cost of violence. It is a call to society to listen, to act, and to protect those who are vulnerable. Because behind every headline, there is a real person, a mother, a daughter, a friend, whose life mattered deeply. For Ashley Elkins, justice is not only found in the courtroom. It is found in keeping her memory alive, in fighting for the safety of others, and in ensuring that her children grow up knowing their mother's life had value. She was not disposable. She was loved. She was needed. She deserved so much more than the fate she suffered. Her story will not be forgotten.